Hi, Mike.
Morning.
Thanks for coming in on short notice.
Sure, no problem. We had some exciting news this morning. Star
Yeah,
Wars.
one thing I wasn't expecting today was breaking Star Wars news. Um, just for everything going on in the parks, and like they tend to do it on Thursdays, because then they can put in the Star Wars, whatever it's called, This Week in Star Wars show.
Yeah.
So 9 a.m. We get this logo.
Yep. And I have to guess this was something that they were saving for Celebration to announce.
So
But that's what
I got some theories on, not theories, but I have some analysis I'd like to get to. But first, we'll talk a little bit about it. It's an upcoming animated series for Disney Plus, kind of spinning out of
Clone Wars.
Clone Wars, right? And I just want to say, get the quotes from the press release here. So it takes place post the Clone Wars, as they deal with the ramifications of the end of Revenge of the Sith. And Agnes Chu, senior VP of content for Disney Plus, said, "Giving new and existing fans the final chapter of Star Wars: The Clone Wars has been an honor at Disney Plus, and we are overjoyed by the global response to this landmark series. While The Clone Wars may have come to its conclusion, our partnership with the groundbreaking storytellers and artists at Lucasfilm Animation is only beginning. We are thrilled to bring Dave Filoni's vision to life through the next adventures of the Bad Batch." So Dave Filoni, who was the showrunner, for lack of a better word, for Clone Wars, and has worked on The Mandalorian, is executive producing. Looks like the supervising director is going to be Brad Rao from Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars Resistance, and Jennifer Corbett from Star Wars Resistance and my favorite Star Wars project, NCIS, will be the head writer. So,
how have they not done a Star Wars procedural murder show yet?
That's a good question. But can you give us a little bit of background on the Bad Batch, like who they are? They were obviously in the last season of Clone Wars on Disney Plus, but what's the rundown?
It's funny. The Bad Batch is a 4-episode arc at the beginning of the Clone Wars season 7, but it had actually been shown in like an unfinished form at Star Wars Celebration like 5 years ago. I think because they just thought the Clone Wars was never going to come back, and they had these unfinished episodes kind of sitting around, so they released them there, and then they've been on YouTube. You can watch them there for a long time. Then they like redid the animation, or finished the animation, changed a couple scenes here and there, and released them in a polished form for season 7 of the Clone Wars on Disney Plus. But I was always wondering like why they included this set of episodes, especially because they were kind of already out there. And then I thought, well, maybe they're going to pay off in the series finale of the Clone Wars and have the Bad Batch like come in and play a part in that arc where Order 66 happens with Ahsoka Tano and stuff. But they never showed up, and I was like, well, it's kind of odd that they introduced them and then never followed through with anything else. But now it makes perfect sense. They always kind of maybe had this in the back of their minds that they wanted to do this Bad Batch series, which is interesting, and I think I'm looking forward to it. I enjoyed those characters. So the premise of the Bad Batch is that they're clones. They're clones of Jango Fett that were intended to serve in the Republic Army, but they all have weird mutations that they call advantageous mutations, because there are mutated clones that aren't serving in the army at all. They're just not up to snuff. But these guys have mutations that help them. Like one of them's a really good sniper. Like they all have weird, unique things that set them apart from the other clones.
And kind of like the Star Wars X-Men or the Clone Wars X-Men.
Pretty much, yeah. And then at the end of that arc, one of the main clones that we got to know over the course of the series on Clone Wars joined the Bad Batch as well, and I'm blanking on his name, but I'm sure he'll play a part in the series too. But yeah, I'll be watching that. I'm looking forward to that. See what's and the interesting thing about it is we'll see. I'm sure we'll see what happened to the Bad Batch during Order 66. Like, were they part in killing all the Jedi? Did they manage to avoid getting caught up in all that, and then what is their reaction to the Empire taking over from the fallen Republic and stuff. So I think it's a pretty interesting era to explore for those characters.
Yeah, kind of. It'll be interesting to see where in that between 3.5 era, because we had Rebels, and then obviously we've have A New Hope, and where in that frame, I mean, will some things be concurrent? I mean, there's some overlap with Rebels in terms of creative team, so will Kanan show up and that kind of thing.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, Kanan is alive during this period, obviously. So yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. But the rumor that I had heard for a long time was that there was going to be a follow-up series to Rebels set after Return of the Jedi, so we could find out what happened to Ezra Bridger and Grand Admiral Thrawn and everything. So I guess that theory is still out there. Maybe they'll get to that eventually, but apparently for now they're going backwards a little bit and hitting that post-Clone Wars era.
Before we move on, I just want to share this from Sarah Walker. Hi, I just came and found this. What is this about? We are talking about the news from Star Wars say that they are making the Bad Batch animated series for Disney Plus. So I agree with you because I thought it was weird because there's plenty of sort of unreleased Clone Wars content, and they didn't do everything. They didn't tell every story that they wanted to or had envisioned, for better or for worse, and that's not really the point. That sort of started with this episode, this clump of the Bad Batch, which wasn't really what was teased. The sort of final saga was what was teased when we found about it. So it was just a sort of a weird addendum on its own.
Yeah, that season kind of felt a little disjointed because of that, but now it makes a lot more sense.
So a couple things I find interesting. One is I think this shows that the final season of the Clone Wars did well for Disney Plus. I don't think they would be doing this if it was sort of an afterthought.
Right.
I also think because animation can be done remotely, at least easier than live action, that this will be a way of filling the Star Wars content, the inevitable Star Wars content gap, because while season 2 of The Mandalorian for Disney Plus is on its way, those other series we heard about, haven't started production, and can't film. They can do pre-production. Obviously, with something like Mandalorian, you can do post-production, but you can't film people right now, or at least in any meaningful way. So I think it's a way for them to kind of keep it going. And sort of, I was very curious as to, after Clone Wars, what was the future of Lucasfilm Animation? Because Resistance ended, Clone Wars is obviously ending. I always thought they would keep doing animation, but I had no idea what the series would look like. Because Clone Wars was very different than Rebels, which was very different than Resistance. Clone Wars was a sort of like everything going on in the universe. There was no main through line besides the wars itself. It wasn't like, there was like main crew.
That's another good question too, is what the animation style is going to look like, because as you mentioned, the Clone Wars and Rebels and Resistance all have very different looks to them, and I wonder if the Bad Batch is going to steer closer to what Clone Wars looked like.
What I liked about Rebels and Resistance more than I liked about Clone Wars, though, was that you felt like there was a family, like there was a like on any show that besides Clone Wars, it wasn't just sort of an anthology. Like and it's fun in some ways with Clone Wars. It's like, okay, what's going on over here? I mean, you have R2-D2 centric episodes, you have Anakin centric episodes, but especially when you're watching a series, I feel like when you can see growth and interaction between characters, and seeing the Bad Batch, you could totally see that becoming, they can go all over the galaxy, but it gives you a core as opposed to, a series that you would call like the Dark Times, and just go about whatever. Mm-hmm. So, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see, too, is this it? Is this like the Star Wars animated show? Or are they going to do like, 2 or 3 at a time like they've done in the past?
Yeah, I think it's all kind of up in the air right now, but hopefully we'll find out more soon. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's nice to have Star Wars to talk about. It's been a while.
Yeah, this is the biggest news that's come out in a bit. I think for the reasons that you've said, and like I said earlier, I think they were saving some announcements for Celebration, and now that that's not happening, they can kind of trickle out whatever they were planning on.
I think it's what's interesting is we, obviously there's no doubt COVID-19 has changed everyone's plans, but I would love to know, did this get accelerated? Did this get pushed back? Like, I mean, it doesn't matter in any realm except just curiosity of like, was this originally going to be announced at Celebration? Was, why is it today? Like, no one just wakes up and like, let's hit send today, right? Like, there's always a plan. It might be a stupid plan, but there's always a plan as to like why things are announced when they're announced. And sometimes I try and figure out why. It's and with Disney Plus, there's just so much going on there. But I'm curious to know, like, we don't know where it is in production. Like, we don't know. We know it's going to air in 2021, but that's a long year. And where will we get more information? I mean, all we have really is a logo. We haven't seen a trailer or anything. So I know obviously things can change. Obviously, Jedi Temple Challenge was originally announced or quasi announced, and now it's on YouTube every Wednesday, which I totally forget to watch.
I mean, you've seen one of those. You've seen most of them, I think. I mean, something else that we can kind of assume about this show is that, in all likelihood, D. Bradley Baker will be back to voice all the clones as he did throughout the Clone Wars and then into Rebels as well.
I keep saying Yvette Nicole Brown is like the patron saint of Disney Plus because she's in about 80% of the projects. But I feel like D. Bradley Baker is like the animated patron saint, being in the Phineas and Ferb film and the Clone Wars, obviously. So yeah, D. Bradley Baker, Universal or Disney World's own D. Bradley Baker.
What does he voice at Disney World?
He used to work there, like
former cast
member, entertainment performer, and then he went to Universal Studios. He was Beetlejuice over there. And then I think when Nickelodeon was filming, he got some jobs. Like he was Olmec from Legends of the Hidden Temple. Okay. And then I think, a voice career kind of followed after that. So a significant portion of the cast of Star Wars: The Clone Wars has worked at Walt Disney World. So
I hadn't thought about that. I've been watching this Star Wars trivia schmodown thing on YouTube, and Sam Witwer, the voice of Darth Maul in Clone Wars, is probably the most knowledgeable Star Wars trivia contestant I've ever seen, which is weird. You don't usually think of the actors as knowing more than the fans, but
yeah, but didn't he kind of like he's like a straight up actor who I think was like loves Star Wars so much he's like transitioned into a Star Wars guy because he loves, like, it means that much to him. I mean, that's what I mean, you see that in like Marvel sometimes too, where it's like people just want to be on it so much that they might play below their weight or will it to happen because they and he's good at it too. He's not like a celebrity cameo kind of guy, like you hear it and you're like, yeah, that's good. That's not like,
you mean kind of like Lawrence Fishburne when he like wanted to voice the Silver Surfer.
Right.
Or Michael Chiklis being the Thing just because they had like grown up on the comics.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's fun. I mean, it's nice to, I think sometimes what I like about it is when it comes to sort of this genre entertainment, some people kind of look down on it as, just a big paycheck without any sort of, resonance. And obviously, I mean, you're not talking Best Picture awards. It's not a,
prestige
movie that comes that kind of prestige. Yeah. But so it's nice when some people who are just great actors want to have fun and are normal people. Not every movie needs to be, a game-changing artistic achievement. I mean, Ava DuVernay, who has made some, very important films that talk about important issues. When she made Wrinkle in Time, we were at a screening and she goes, I make movies that, have commentary, but sometimes you can just have fun and be with your family, and that's its own form of commentary. I think that's true.
Is that at your screening too?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, she must have been. She got around a lot during those press screenings.
It might have been the same screening, Mike. Back.
Okay, I guess. Yeah, and I also think it's fun, or I think the direction they're going in with Star Wars right now, where they're going to be pursuing these kind of smaller scale stories, I think is a positive one for me, because not everything has to be kind of in the similar vein of what you're saying. And when it comes to Star Wars, not everything has to be the entire fate of the universe is at stake. We can follow, like the Bad Batch, we can follow this one group of characters and see what their reactions are to certain events and stuff. And
yeah, well, I think because you can't go bigger than Galactic Civil War, right? And like, you know, I mean, especially since they've introduced this, you know, restore balance of the Force, like that's the thing. That's like the prophecy of all time. So, you know, you need to find other ways to tell stories. And I think Marvel kind of set up that precedent where it's like, yeah, you can have big epic storytelling, and they'll go back to that, I have no doubt. But you can also have, you know, Ant-Man and still be fun and still have stakes, just not, you know, fate of the universe. And you see that in comics too, right? Like there's big like crossover events where worlds are battling worlds and stuff. And I don't like those as much as, you know, guy trying to solve a crime, you know, and or, you know, a heist comic book, because sometimes it's harder to get your head around that.
Agreed. And speaking of smaller stakes Star Wars stories, we're going to be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story, which is now on Disney Plus. If you tune in at 7:30 this evening.
Yeah, for our Laughing Place Movie Club. And what was I going to say about that? Now, oh, you know, that means the whole entire Star Wars film library is now on Disney Plus.
That's right. How many hours of entertainment is that?
How many hours of entertainment or how many hours of content? Oh. Unless you count Caravan of Courage, which I don't believe is on there.
No, well, we'll say theatrical releases are all on Disney Plus now.
Well, thanks so much for jumping in, Mike.
Sure.
And look forward to watching your coverage of this. Means you get to do more episode recaps eventually.
Cats are going crazy back there. Yeah, looking forward to that. Recaps coming again next year.
Yeah. Well, and then you'll do Mando too. When's that coming out? September? October?
October.
Right. Well, thanks so much. Don't forget to tune in at 7:30 Pacific for Mike hosting our Laughing Place Movie Club on Solo, a Star Wars story.
Thanks.